There are many different ways, but this is a basic way that will help get ribbons to be flat and secure to the ankle. So what I do is I'm going to take the back seam and push it in and take the two sides and gather them in here. And then right where those seams are is where I'm going to put the ribbons. The ribbon is going to come all in one long section. Pointe shoes do not come with ribbons or elastic sewn. That's something that will need to be done once they're purchased. I've already gone ahead and cut the ribbons. What I did is I took it, folded it in half, and I cut it, and then I took the two halves and cut them again. So I end up with 4 equal lengths for the 2 shoes of each. And here's elastic. Sometimes you'll find elastic that is thicker width, or sometimes with the thinner width. It's just personal preference. And this has already been cut, been measured and been cut. So here, folding it in and finding that gap right there, and that's where the ribbon, right where it folds, is going to go in for the pointe shoe. And what I suggest is actually taking the end and folding it over, and that just gives more security and it makes it more durable as far as with the stitching. And you can mark it. I like to use pins. Some people may put like a small pencil mark in to know where it needs to go. What's important is that you sew on the inside below where the drawstring is, because this is needed to help secure the shoe tighter to the foot. And if you sew through the drawstring, you're not going to be able to do that. And so I like to pin on the outside. That way I can see what I'm doing on the inside. And you always want to put your ribbon on an angle so that way when it comes time to tie it, it will be flat against the ankle. And that's important. You don't want to have any gaps in it. I prefer to double the thread. Loop, roll, and then pull. And that gives it a nice easy knot. The shiny side of the ribbon should go on the outside of the shoe. The dollar side should be on the inside of the shoe. Some people prefer to sew all around the outside edges and then across the top of the ribbon. Some people prefer to just sew right across. What's important is that it's secure, so that way when the ribbon is pulled, that it's not going to pop off. So I'm going to just show a few stitches, and I'm starting and I'm taking the inside part of the shoe. Some people sew all the way through. I'm just going on this inside layer so it doesn't go through the satin on the outside. Through there and through the ribbon, pulling through, and just making stitches all along the outside of it. And just pulling it tight as you go along. You want to make sure that you have both. I'm doing the box just so that it's secure. You can also have the ribbon sewn by a sewing machine, which is fine, and just taking it right underneath where the drawstring is, just making sure that that isn't caught in there. It is good, though, that if, for pointe shoes, if you're not going to be doing it yourself, the dancer won't be doing it, that at least the dancer is present, so that way you can check for proper fitting as needed to ensure that the ribbons are flat and at a good angle. For the elastic, you want to find the back seam and place the elastic. You want to measure it, of course. Put it on one side of the back seam. And I'm going to pin. And you want to put your foot in. Take the elastic over and just make sure that it is a snug fit. Place the other side of the elastic on the back of the seam equal to the opposite side. and then pin that as well, depending on what the length needs to be. And then you can sew that. Some dancers prefer to sew the elastic on the inside. Some dancers prefer to sew the elastic on the outside. It's a personal preference again. And some dancers don't like the elastic rubbing against the heel. So, and I'm going to sew the elastic the same way that I did with the ribbon. It's just taking those stitches. You can go straight across or you can take it around, just so that it's secure. Once the ribbons and elastic are sewn on, this is what the end result would look like. I have the elastic on both sides, and then the ribbons sewn on both sides as well. Putting the pointe shoe on, you have your toe pads. There's many different styles. It's a personal preference as well. Some dancers like to wear them underneath their tights. Some dancers like to wear them over their tights. Personal preference once again. Go ahead and put the pointe shoe toe pad on and have you put your foot in the shoe. For the drawstring, you want to pull that it's snug, not too tight on the Achilles, so you can adjust. And then tie it in a square knot, right over left, left over right. Is that too tight? No. Okay, and then you have a knot. Some dancers will leave that, some put it in a bow. And then anything that's extra, you can cut off because it's going to be tucked in to the shoe. Okay, so I'm going to ask you just to slip it off. Okay, and tuck the drawstring in, that should always be tucked in. And put the shoe on. So here's the elastic. It should fit right up against the ankle, tight. There shouldn't be any gaps or anything in it. And for the ribbons, some dancers like to tie the ribbons on point. Some like to do it flat. Some like to do flat with a bit of a flexed foot, just so that way when the ribbons go around the Achilles that it isn't too tight. Okay? There are many different ways of tying ribbons. This is one example. I like to start with the inside ribbon, crossing it over the center of the ankle, wrapping it up above the ankle bone and around to the inside. And then taking the other one, crossing it over, right over the center of the ankle. The ribbon should be flat. And then bringing it, I'm going to bring this one around. And then bringing this one. So you're going to bring one around and then the other here. And then right behind the ankle bone, there's a bit of a groove here. That's where you want to place your knot. Ribbon should be flat. You should have an X and then a line. One ribbon crosses right over the top. It ends up with a small triangle in the center. And I'm going to do another square knot right over left, and then left over right. Now at this point, you can cut any extra ribbons that are off, because all of this you don't need to go underneath. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut for now, I'm just going to cut on a diagonal. And then you can also take a lighter once the ribbon is off and you know what the length is going to be, and you quickly go over with that. And then these go underneath the ribbon that's been tied around the ankle. What's important is in buying a new pair of pointe shoes, especially for the first time, is being fitted properly, having a good fit for the shoe. If the shoe is too big going on pointe, the foot will sink down. If the shoe is too small, then the toes are going to be crunched. Once you find a good fit, having your instructor look over it to make sure the shoe fits well. Sewing the ribbons by pulling the inside bringing the sides together, putting them on an angle. Check also to make sure that before you actually sew the ribbons, that they are going to lay flat over the ankle before sewing them, so you don't have to undo what you've done and then redo it again. And then finally, for the point shoe, is making sure that when you tie it and secure the ribbon over, that it's flat against the ankle, crisscrossing over the ankle, and then flat line above. If you have someone else that's going to be sewing your shoe, then it's good to be present there so they can check along the way with it as well.